I'm going to be going over the tools of the trade. These are the items that were sent in your sewing kit. They are the tools that you will be utilizing to create your projects. This differs from the materials that you'll be using to create your projects, which include things like the fabric and the sock monkey kit and the snaps and so forth. Right now I have a fabric marking pencil out. A fabric marking pencil is very important because it is usually washable and it makes a mark on the fabric. Okay, if you have a blue one, it'll make a blue mark. I've got one that's double-ended. And if you have a pink one, it'll make a pink mark. They can brush away or wash away. You can also use something like a regular number 2 pencil on the fabric. That is washable as well. What you don't want to use is something that is permanent when you're marking your fabric, your seam guides and so forth. I've got 2 cutting implements here. Both are included in your kit. Here we call these snips. They're also called embroidery scissors. They have a small, very pointy end. It's very sharp, so please exercise caution as you're using them. These are able to be used by left-handed and right-handed individuals. The snip has a straight, sharp edge on it and can be used for snipping thread, as the name might imply, or creating a straight cut in your fabric. These are called pinking shears. Because we're sewing at home and we don't have other machines to help us finish the edges of fabric, we're going to use pinking shears. They have a saw blade edge, as you can see there, so that when the fabric is cut, it creates a zigzag pattern. This does not prevent fraying completely, but it does lessen the likelihood that the fabric is going to fray. It will only fray to a certain point if you pink the edges. Also included in your kit is a variety of threads. We have all-purpose thread here. You will have a black spool and a white spool. And you will also have a spool of button and craft thread. We will use the all-purpose thread for general sewing, so sewing of seams and so forth. I have a piece cut here. You'll notice that I can rip it. It took a little bit of trying, but you can tear it if you're very careful. You might want to give that a try just to play around with what your supplies are. And then I have a piece of the button and craft here, or sometimes it's called button and carpet thread, and this is much stronger. This is used for sewing closures. We use button and craft thread for sewing buttons, hooks, eyes, snaps, and so forth on. We have some other crafting purposes for it, but you'll be using it to sew your snaps, hooks, and eyes onto your fabric. And you will be using the all-purpose spools of thread to do your general fabric sewing. You'll also have a pack of needles. These are a pack of hand sewing needles. There's an assortment in here. You can see that there are different sizes. Different people like to use different sizes of needles, and that's okay. Find what you're comfortable with using. If you're trying to get the needles out and you're having difficulty, you can fold the little protective sheet down. You could take your snips and push from the bottom one of the needles up, and we'll hopefully be able to pull it out then. Included in your kit is a needle threader. That will probably break within the first couple of times that you're using it, but we will go over how to use it in the class. To go along with your button and craft thread, we have fray check. Fray check is a sealant. It helps to, as the name would imply, keep the fabric from fraying. It also secures the ends of threads. So if I sew something like a snap or a hook and eye or a button on with button and craft thread, I will reinforce what I've sewn with fray check. Especially in theater, it is helpful because there is a lot of wear and tear on items like that. This is called beeswax. It's, sorry about the reflection, beeswax in a holder. You can take it out. I've used this one a little bit. I'll show you how to, I don't know why it got so bright all of a sudden. We'll show you how to use that. You don't have to take it out of the holder, but it does come out just in case it pops open. Don't worry, just you can pop it back in. That's fine. Beeswax is a thread conditioner, and we use it to make hand sewing easier and to strengthen the thread as we are sewing. You'll also notice that you have a couple of miscellaneous little things. You've got a toothpick. We use the toothpick to sew hole buttons on. That is a button with holes, so a 4-hole or a 2-hole button. We'll use the toothpick. You'll have a safety pin. You'll use the safety pin to open the bottle of fray check, which we will also go over in a demonstration. And then you'll use the safety pin to pin your fabric samples together and keep them all together. These are straight pins. We use these to pin fabric together so that it doesn't move around when we're sewing. You will also have a couple measuring implements. Okay, you'll have your 18-inch ruler. I can't put the whole thing on, but I promise you all 18 inches are there. And you will also have a measuring tape that is 60 inches in length. You can notice that the 18-inch ruler is very rigid. That's for drawing straight lines on paper and fabric. It's also gridded. It's gridded so that we can square up and help find the grain line, for instance, on fabric, which is something we will be going over in a later unit. And then we have the tape measure. The tape measure is flexible, and of course we use the tape measure for things like measuring the body, which is something we will be going over in another unit. It's flexible and easily wraps around your body. Last but not least, we have a seam ripper. Hopefully you don't have to use this a lot. A seam ripper, contrary to popular belief, is not just used because mistakes have been made. We actually use a seam ripper before we even start sewing on a project sometimes. If we have a garment that's already sewn together, we need to make an alteration. Sometimes we have to take part of a seam apart in order to make a correct alteration. So that's what the seam ripper is for. Taking apart a seam that's already been sewn. Be very careful, it's very sharp. And those are the primary tools you'll be utilizing in this class.